Good evening, Havarim. Welcome to the Part 6 study. I had mentioned in the Part 5 that, Abba willing, that was going to be the conclusion of this series. But when I was preparing, I realized that it made sense to have this as the Part 6 because this study is going to be expounding on what I had mentioned in the Part 5 when I had brought up Rahab, the innkeeper, some people say a prostitute, and whether she was both or just one, it doesn't really matter in the sense of she is a believer and she is in the lineage of Yeshua HaMashiach. I had also mentioned in my Part 5 that if you look up Alan Horvath's study, it's a live fellowship on the book of Joshua, Yehoshua, then chapters 3 and 4, he delves into very well what I'm going to be covering on this video a little more specifically with scriptures that I've looked up and, of course, a word study. But I also wanted to suggest you guys watch chapters 1 and 2 as well, because the first set of verses that I want to read tonight is out of chapter 2 in Yehoshua, where Rahav, and I had also called them Malachim, I was mixing that up with the story of Lut, which I'm also going to be talking about, where those were Malachim, these were spies, the Ivrims, that Rahav hid and made the pact with. So, of course, before I start reading the verses, let's request Elohim's precious presence on our study. Abba, Father Yahweh, to thee, Abba, thank you so much, Father, for this time and for your presence, the Ruach HaKodesh, helping us to see things during this time with you that we haven't yet seen in looking over this information, and for helping each and every one of us that is so hungry for these answers to be led to it, and for your protection from the Geder HaKodesh to surround us right now while we are going over this study for the first time, and also all of the future times that this video is rewatched. Thank you so much for providing us with your way of thinking and not our own, and for if we have any understandings at the present time that are incorrect, for your revealing of the correct way of thinking about it. And to thee also, Abba, for helping us to be moldable and bendable like clay in your hands, and for your patience with us in our understanding, because we have such imperfect minds. And thank you also so much for helping us to be more patient with ourselves in the washing and growing in your word that you provide us with. We can be very hard on ourselves, and you help to teach us how to love ourselves as well through this process. Tudi, Abba, for that. And always, of course, through Yeshua, in you, Yahweh, Adonai, Tzaba. Okay, friends, let's dig in. So, what is really encouraging to me through all of these verses that tie in that we're going to be reviewing in this video is I love the process that we're seeing. You know, it's a process of coming out of the world. There are more people that are coming to the correct understanding that they're being obedient to the call. And like I said in the last video, unless Yahweh causes it to happen overnight, which when you come out of a background like I have, in this present system of things, that's not likely, because it's like there's layers that have to be peeled away. And Abba doesn't just yank us, you know, through like a hedge of thorns where it's a painful process. He tenderly works us out so that we can heal during the process. And that's what my hope and prayer is, for these videos to be helpful. You know, it took me about a year and a half once I found Alan's videos in February of last year, 2019, and it's already almost the end of 2020, so really almost 2 years it's taken me to reach this point to where I feel like I understand it enough now to be able to turn around and share it with other people who want to understand these crucial points that aren't really discussed in an accurate understanding with the Hebrew Aramaic, Otiot, Abba Father's language. That's what really renews our mind. So, going to Yehoshua chapter 2, verses 12 through 21 is what we're going to look at. And now, please swear to me, this is Rahav speaking to the spies, the Ivrims, the Hebrews. By Yahweh, since I have shown you kindness, that you also show kindness to my father's house, and shall give me a true token, an oath, and shall spare my father and my mother and my brothers and my sisters and all that they have, and shall deliver our lives from death. And the men said to her, Our lives for yours. if you do not expose this matter of ours, then it shall be, when Yahweh has given us the land, that we shall treat you in kindness and truth. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall, and she dwelt on the wall. And she said to them, Go to the mountain, lest the pursuers come upon you, and you shall hide there 3 days, until the pursuers have returned, and afterwards go on your way. And the men said to her, We are released from this oath of yours, which you have made us swear, unless, when we come into the land, you bind this line of scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. And unless you bring your father, and your mother, and your brothers, and all your father's household to your own home, and it shall be that anyone who goes outside the doors of your house into the street, who goes his own way, his blood is on his own head. And we are innocent. And anyone who is with you in the house, his blood is on our head, if a hand is laid on him. And if you expose this matter of ours, then we shall be released from your oath, which you made us swear. And she said, Let it be according to your words. And she sent them away, and they went, and she bound the scarlet cord in the window. They requested obedience to their oath if her family was going to be saved. This isn't saying that just because they're in the house, just because they're of your family, that they're going to be saved. That's where the twist comes in the interpretations that we get from modern day scribes and Pharisees. Je suis Vanessa Wilkerson has a really good talk that she does on this part also. It's called, Does Your Salvation Apply to Your Family? So it looks like this, the graphic there with the family store thrift picture. She also talks about ma'aseh. We're going to look at that as well, because I wanted to kind of expound on some parts. But first, before I jump over there, I needed to mention that these ties with the family, I'm going to also, I don't want you guys to forget, we're going to go to Bereshit and talk about Lut, because I mentioned that in the part 5. So hang tight on that one. This is also, I wanted to mention about Je suis Vanessa Wilkerson's video right here, because this is all tied in to that one where Alan does this study. She kind of expounds on where Alan mentioned in his live fellowship in chapters 3 and 4, which I also mentioned in my part 5. So going to Ma'aseh, this is chapter 16, verses 30 through 34. I'm going to read. And having led them outside, he said, Masters, what do I have to do to be saved? He was speaking to Shaul and Silah. So this was when they were released by Elohim from the prison, when their shackles were just opened and the doors were just opened, but they didn't leave because they knew that there was an opportunity there to witness to the guard, to the Roman guard. So this is their response to the Roman guard. And they said, Believe on the Adon, Yahshua HaMashiach, and you shall be saved, you and your household. And they spoke the word of Yahweh to him, and to all who were in his house. And taking them in that hour of the night, he washed their wounds, and immediately he was immersed, he and all that were his. And having brought them into his house, he put food before them, and he rejoiced with all his household, having believed in Elohim. They all joined in. They weren't just watching and said, oh, good for you, good, that means now we get to be saved too. No, they all participated. They all took the necessary steps to gain belief. So for our family members to be included in the chana, the faith, the grace, the being a part of those who pitch tents with Elohim, they have to do the necessary footwork as well. This is how it all ties in with this playlist, where if we are just saying, oh, it's okay, I love you, and just continuing to condone their going their own way, it's like saying it's okay. There's more chance of the person to let the ruach of Elohim move on them in their solitude, in their missing of our fellowship. To help, if you're unfamiliar with this chana, watch this video from Alan, the one that says Ephesians. It's called True Meaning of Grace and Faith. It's one of his older ones. You can tell because his beard's shorter. And this is also the graphic on that side about Yehoshua. So those are my 3 videos total that I'm recommending in this one, my video. So the other example, getting back to Lot, we're going to Bereshit, chapter 19, verses 10 through 26. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. These were the Malachim men that I was mixing up earlier, that I mentioned. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, and they wearied themselves to find the door. And the Malachim said to Lot, Have you anyone else here? A son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, Bring them out of this place, for we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. And Lut went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh is going to destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be as one joking. Sounds like today, huh? Oh, things have been going on since the days of our ancestors. Like in 2nd Cephas, 2nd Peter, where nothing new under the sun, huh? And when morning dawned, the messengers urged Lut to hurry, saying, Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, and Yahweh having compassion on him. And they brought him out and put him outside the city. And it came to be, when they had brought them outside, that he said, Escape for your life! Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, Oh no, Yahweh! Look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness, which you have shown to me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I may die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. Is it not a small matter? And let my life be saved? And he said to him, Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Yahweh listens to prayers. He listens to our requests. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there, the Malachim said. So, the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen up upon the earth when Lut entered Zoar. And Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Ormah from Yahweh out of the Shamayim. So he overthrew these cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. She disobeyed. Our obedience can't rub off on our family members just because they're with us. Their disobedience is more likely to rub off onto us. Remember to go back to that study on Chagi, where it talks about the transference from the dead bodies. It can infect us more than our Koreshah, our dedicatedness that Yahweh does through us can rub off on them. So, the last scripture I want to read before we go to the Otiot study is out of Romaim. Actually, second to last. I forgot about one more. These all tie in with obedience that have to be considered. Chapter 9, verses 15 to 18. And now this is also kind of picking up on a comment that I made in my part 5, or it might have been in the one about many titles, one names. Either way, you know, a lot of people say, well, Yahweh looks at the heart. And yes, that's true. He does look at the heart. But you can't just take a half truth. You have to look at the whole statement. He doesn't just look at our heart. He also looks at what we do. Yahweh does what pleases him, pleases to him, pleasing. And yet, he also obeys his own righteous decrees. He's not going to say, do as I say and not as I do. He sets the perfect example for us. For he says to Moshe, I shall favor whomever I favor. I shall pitch tents with whomever I pitch tents. And I shall have compassion on whomever I have compassion. So then, it is not of him who is wanting, nor of him who is running, but of Elohim, who shows favor, who pitches tents with. So it's not just by our heart, or not just by our works, but it's both. You can't make a hand clap with just one hand. You need both. You need the right heart condition with the chana, the pitching of tent with Elohim, with the works. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this same purpose I have raised you up, to show my power in you, and that my name be declared in all the earth. Don't ever forget to give Yahweh the credit, so we're not left behind. So then, he favors whom he wants, and he hardens whom he wants. Remember, if this is a hard one for you to wrap your brain around, watch that video from Alan about free will or predestination. It's both. Yahweh knows our hearts, so he pitches tents with those whom have the right heart condition, which causes us to be able to have good works. Yaakov 2:26. For as the body without the ruach is dead, so also the belief is dead without the works, without chana, pitching of tents with Elohim. The life is Elohim, His Ruach, His indwelling presence. When we don't have that, we are dead. That's when we are in captivity, the word we're going to look at. And to conclude this, how do we be upright in such a corrupt world? How do we have a heart like King David, a man after Yahweh's own heart? If your loved one isn't walking with you in this life or death matter, like I had mentioned at the start of all this series, that was pretty much at the end of my How Do We Survive the Last Days video, when I mentioned that getting in deep to this concern about Elohim helping our loved ones. We look at our part, we have to do our part, and I asked Abba, what is your part? What are you doing for not only my Ish, but also everyone else whom I care about, that currently at this present time isn't pitching tents with you? Talk to me about my pain, please, Abba, with this situation. And he so lovingly sent me to Zephaniah. That's Zephaniah chapter 3, verses 14 to 20, which I'll share with you, and then we'll do the study. Shout for joy, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Yisrael. Be glad and rejoice with all your heart, O daughter of Yerushalayim. Yahweh has turned aside your judgments. He has faced your enemy. The sovereign of Yisrael, Yahweh, is in your midst. No longer need you fear evil. In that day it shall be said to Yerushalayim, do not fear, Zion. Do not let your hands be weak. Yahweh, your Elohim, is in your midst, is mighty to save. He rejoices over you with joy. He is silent in his love. That, in other versions, says he rests in his love. We need to rest in his love too. He rejoices over you with singing. I shall gather those who grieve about the appointed place, who are among you, to whom its reproach is a burden. see, I am dealing with all those afflicting you at that time. And I shall save the lame and gather those who were cast out. And I shall give them for a praise and for a name in all the earth where they were put to shame. At that time I shall bring you in. Even at that time I gather you. For I shall give for you a name. For I shall give you for a name and for a praise among all the peoples of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, said Yahweh. What a day to keep in our prayers and to keep at the forefront of our mind. So, this captivity, I figured it would be good to look up to keep in our minds, what do we have to be cautious of that we don't get sucked into, and also to keep in our prayers for our loved ones that aren't currently Chana, pitching tents at this moment. So, I wrote both of these on here because Strong's said Sibut or Sabit, which it's like, okay, I'll just look both of them up because, it wasn't specific. If you get your Strong's Concordance out, you'll see that it says exile, concretely prisoners, figuratively a former state of prosperity, captivity, former prosperity with the Ruach can apply for sure. So, for this first one, remember it goes right to left. Separation from Yeshua, caught, nailed as a slave to one's flesh. I'll go over that in a minute with the individual Otiot. But first, while I'm still holding this up, I will read for you the second, Sabit. Separation from Yeshua by this one's own actions, which show where their worship is, where their pitching of tents is, which way they press on. So, the Sibut, separation from Yeshua, caught, nailed as a slave to one's flesh. One who has been marked in that moment by their being stuck in their flesh, which is what separates them from Yahushua. To me, I saw that as one who is giving in to the weakness of the flesh, which would be Sibut. The latter, Sibit, separation from Yahushua, by this one's own actions, which show where their worship is, where their pitching of tents is. This one is also pitching of tents. How are we setting up our house, which can also be our body, our temple? Which is the way they are pressing on. They've been marked by one who has shown where they're choosing by their own actions. Just like I said in my other video, someone who's in word only, they're not following up by their actions to walk and press on the right way, which is with Yahushua, being in the family of Yahushua. So that would just be one who is choosing Sabit, captivity. So which do we want to choose? Of course, we're going to fall into momentary weakness. We're in the flesh. That's why we need Yahushua. Yahweh is salvation. Yahu, Yahuwah. Alan gets into the name meanings too in that video, the part 1, the chapter 1 and 2. So I'm going to also put that as a graphic for my end screen, because that can be kind of confusing to hear all the different names and way it's pronounced. So I have a video that I covered all that, my understanding at this present time. Of course, if Elohim reveals to me more information that I haven't found yet, that resonates through the Ruach communing, then of course we go with the present understanding that he gives us. Though I know for sure, because this understanding hasn't changed for me for this whole 2 years that I've really been experiencing this separation from my ish and from my flesh nature that has been getting replaced with the filling of the ruach. And like I said, I'm much happier now, and joy is a gift of the ruach. So that's how we know if we're on the right track. Ayin, spiritual insight and vision, da'ai, a knowing that the filling of the Ruach HaKodesh grants us when we are Echad, one with Yahweh, and our Adon, Yahshua HaMashiach. So I hope and I pray that you find the answers you need for your individual situation, and that you chana, pitch tents with Elohim every moment of your day, and that all those who are in your prayers either are as well in chana, in pitching of tents with Elohim, or that they will be chana come Yeshua's return in the Nechatef. Shalom, Havarim.